to another episode of What You Doing podcast. My name is Matt. Today I'm sitting down with Darren Hupke to talk about his mini zine collection, Pixels and Polygons, numerous books that he's written, and just overall his projects. This is a little bit of a departure for the standard of the podcast where I'm talking to somebody about one specific project. I'm talking to Darren mostly about his work in self-publishing and writing about video games. As I say during the interview, Darren was one of the first people to reach out to be involved with What You Doing, and it's fantastic to finally have him on the show. As usual, all of his links will be in the description if you want to check it out as you're listening. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. Yeah, how are you? How's things?
Good. Yeah, I woke up and decided to just treat myself and was playing video games instead of doing anything important.
Nice.
And then that just led into looking at the clock. I'm like, all right, now it's time to jump in the shower if I'm going to do this. So scrambling to yell at the kids and get people to move out of the way and do all these things to get on board, all just so I can play those video games for just an hour and a half this morning. I don't know if it was worth it, but maybe it was worth it.
We did it. So that's what happened. I love it. What were you playing? What were you getting into?
Oh, that new Suikoden 1 and 2 HD remaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those games. I played and beat the original and all that stuff as a kid. So I've just been going through that and just making sure, following along, getting all the 108 characters and doing all the recruitment and everything like that. So just classic RPG, grinding and fun and everything to start the day.
I get you. I was playing Final Fantasy 13 today on stream, which was we got to the point where it's like, all right, that way is the final boss fight. So we're gonna go back a little bit and we're gonna save and then we're gonna start digging into it. So I'm excited to start, mindless grinding for, slightly better stats and better weapons and stuff like that.
Do you release this as a video podcast as well, or just record video just because it's more human interaction to not just stare at it?
I did for the first couple I did just do the video recording because it was just more enjoyable, but I do release as a video.
Okay.
Yeah. We're just talking about this in the last interview where it's just like, yeah, a lot of podcasts don't do video. A lot of people say that it's not worth the effort. And I was like, too bad. I've decided to do it, so there we go.
Yeah, I record the audio for mine. I want to see the person. I want to talk to the person, all that stuff, for my podcast. And but I don't release or capture that video or anything. So it's still ultimately it's just an audio podcast. But all the effort and energy is there. If I just did one extra step, I could probably have a YouTube version of it. But I'm it's gonna involve me looking into something. And do I want to do that right now instead of X, Y, or Z? And yeah, it's always so much stuff going on.
That's fair. Yeah, and I totally get not wanting to put that effort in because it's like, okay, I get a video version. It's gonna take you X time longer to manage it, and then is that worth it? I totally get that thing. I don't know. I just decided early on. I was like, I'm gonna do a video version.
That's cool. No, I applaud that. That is cool. Okay. Yeah, I'm nervous about filling that time, but let's. I guess that's the power of conversation. So we'll see.
The fun of it is if we hit a point where it feels like we've talked about everything we're going to talk about, and we've hit everything about your thing, then we'll call it. I don't keep to 2 hours like we have to hit 2 hours, but as far as scheduling time,
Yeah, gotcha.
We had a couple that went long, and not that it was an accident, but it was we were really get into it, and so I always want to let people know up front. To be trying to do too much. Hi, everybody. Welcome to What You Doing podcast. This is Matt. I'm here today with Darren Hupke. Darren, say hello.
Hi, I am Darren. That is me.
So Darren was one of the first people to express interest in being on the podcast, which was super cool. When I sort of first put everything together, I put the form out and I just put it on my Blue Sky, and I was like, hey, who would be into being on this podcast? And Darren was one of the first people to do it and was incredibly patient with just being like, I'll be on it. And then it's been however many months. And now I'm like, hey, Darren said he'd be on it. And let's get him on this thing.
It's the power of Blue Sky.
Oh, God. I was astounded at the amount of people that were very quickly And anytime really, I put the form out there and ask if people are curious about being on it. It is surprising. I'm less, I guess I shouldn't. A thing I keep saying is like how surprised I am at how excited people are to be on the podcast and to talk it up and to, sit down and chat with me. And it's like, I guess I shouldn't, because so many people are excited. I guess it's not that surprising.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the whole reason we have a podcast industry, is a lot of people are like, I'll talk about my thing. Yeah, I love my thing. Tell everybody about my thing. So Darren, in my notes for shorthand, I always write like the person's name and what they do so that I can just reference it and keep that in my brain. I just wrote retro publishing because you have so many different projects and brands and names and things.
I'm good at that.
And I mean, we're just gonna talk about all of them, because why not? I guess the most recent thing to talk about would be the retro game zines that you just finished on Kickstarter.
Yes.
So first, before we listen, I'm getting ahead of myself, right? Before we get into that, Darren, why don't you introduce yourself? Let people know who you are, what you do, why you're here. Whatever. A little short intro here at the top.
Yeah, I mean, why I'm here is, we'll answer that one first. That's just to have fun, just to have a conversation, meet new people, discuss and talk about video games, the things we do to create around our passion and interest of video games, and how those things all intersect with what we're doing here. But yeah, I'm Darren Hupke. I'm just a guy. I'm just a regular old person like everyone else, and I've always been into games. Like, I mean, there's pictures of me on the now deleted Facebook accounts, but of me like playing an NES on Christmas morning. Me and my brother, it's in my hand and everything. I must have been like 2 years old or so, 2 or 3, and just from there, like coincidentally through my childhood, there's always like family photos, and like there's Darren in the background with a Sega Genesis controller in his hand. Like, oh look, this family gathering. Like, oh, there's Darren with his PlayStation. Like, oh look, hey, here's a Christmas. Like, here's Darren with his Nintendo 64. Or like, oh, they're on vacation. Like, oh, here's Darren with his Dreamcast. I am just always playing games. I've always loved video games. I'm just being like creative storytelling and all that stuff, I think, is where it all comes from. But I think once you threw the interactivity into it, like that's when I knew like I was like really into it. Like I love movies and books and stuff like that growing up as well. But like being able to interact with this entertainment and everything is what like really keeps me just like absorbed and sucked into video games. So always been a fan. And when I couldn't play video games, I was reading like magazines, reading like EGM, Game Informer, or PSM, like all like the US like publications and everything. And just always just kind of being absorbed around it. I met, my best friend growing up was heavily into video games as well. So then our conversations at recess at school were all about video games and what if we made a video game and what about this video game and yeah, so my entire life has just been all like orbiting around that. Started getting into like some comic books and some like creative writing and all that stuff when I was younger. I started managing a comic shop, and so that got me into actually writing and self-publishing like a few like small comics projects, like nothing too like big or like huge or anything, but like that just opened the door on like production and creativity and self-publishing and doing it yourself. Like you don't need somebody to tell you you can do something. Like you can go out. There's actually avenues to let you go out and do anything you want, like on your own, independently and everything. And so circling back around and having some comics projects fall through, it is a very collaborative process to make comics. And so when you don't have, just like a band, like if you don't have enough members to fill all the necessary instruments and roles, like you aren't going to be able to do it. And so like the video game books and publishing stuff all came because that was like, hey, like this is a solo thing I can do. Like I can do the writing, like, and I can self-teach myself like the tools, like InDesign or whatever it may be that I need to use to Photoshop and things like that to like produce like the other stuff. So like why not, even if it's like a trial of banging my head against the wall and attrition and everything, like just keep trying to see if you can at least get a hang of it enough to continue. And so like that's where I started like making my first book project and had it on Kickstarter and everything, and it was a good success. And that that just kind of fueled me to kind of continue on and snowball from there and make further projects and start to like grow the scope and scale, and then, you know, have other outlets and meet other people, and, you know, then in meeting other people, be able to collaborate and do more. And it's kind of scaled and gone from there too. So yeah, that's the very long version of why Darren likes video games and how Darren likes video games.
No, I love it. I'm a lot the same way. Like I grew up playing video games, and there was basically never a point in my life when I wasn't playing video games. And I think the last decade or so, I've sort of redefined my relationship with them and sort of grown in my appreciation of them, and they became no more or less a part of my life, but it became like it changed the part of my life that it was. You know, it became more important. It became more focused. And it's funny, like, you know, you mentioned the having like family photos of stuff. Like there's one family photo I have when I was a kid of me getting Pokemon Blue, and it's the photo I think about all the time, because it's one of the few photos I have from when I was a kid. But I have that same memory of going on family trips and having a Game Boy and playing Nintendo 64 at my house, and going over to my friend's house and playing PlayStation and all of that. So I'm surprised, Darren. You'll be happy to know you're the first person on the podcast like for video games. You know, it's
yeah. I've seen the past, like a lot of tabletop and like I don't want to say board games, but, you know, because that's lumping it all under one umbrella. But yeah, I've seen you have a lot of cool guests around that sphere, and that is similar. Like, I mean, you're engineering and thinking of the mechanics and all that stuff, but you're doing that, you know, in a tabletop fashion and everything, and like crafting the story and creating like the rules and limits. So it's all in the same wheelhouse and everything, you know. So yeah, you're on the same wavelength. But
it's fun because this is like I'm excited. I was excited for you to be on specifically because this is letting me branch out in the way that I kind of always intended for the podcast, which was just people doing cool stuff regardless. You know, it just so happened that I fell into a spot that I could, you know, get a lot of tabletop people specifically kind of quickly. But so this has been exciting. So when you very early were like, yes, I want to do this, I was like, okay, cool. Because, you know, I want to have, like, I'd love to have someone that does music, you know, and I want to talk to people about the cool stuff they make, regardless of whatever fashion that is. And so I've been excited about this for a little while.
That's cool. I'm excited to see where the show goes then. I mean, I'm listening along, obviously, just to like what you're up 12 episodes or so, 11 episodes. So let's get into those triple digits and let's see the type of people we can talk to on Matt's show. That'll be cool. I
appreciate that. I really, people have been amazing with you know, listening and reaching out and saying how much they like it. And it has been phenomenal because honestly, you know, I've said this in a previous episode, like this is an idea I've had for a while, kind of off and on, but an idea that's stuck with me of just asking people how they do the thing that they do and what drove them to do it and what inspires them to, you know, what gets them out of bed doing the thing every day. So I think that's where we'll start here. You know, we talked a little bit before the intro, you know, you got up, you were playing some video games before the day started. What was, you know, you mentioned you worked in a comic shop doing independent publishing. I imagine that'll come up more as part of this, but what was kind of the thing that inspired you to say, like, hey, I want to take my love of video games, my passion about video games, and I want to turn this into a written format, like a researched format to talk about them for people?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's because it was like, you know, like my fifth swing at trying to like be involved in games and like insert myself into the like quote unquote industry of it somehow, some way. Because I've attempted to and dreamed of being involved in games like forever. Like I can, you know, I remember an issue of Next Gen magazine I picked up off the newsstand. Dante from Devil May Cry was on it, but there was a little blurb on the corner. I've not seen the cover of this issue in years, but it's burned into my brain. But there's a blurb about it talking about DigiPen. And it was an institute where you can go and learn. I think it was partially funded from Nintendo, so it was up in Washington and everything. And they had this just a great write-up on like how to get involved in games. And it always was so unapproachable to me before. Like, I'd read about games, people make games, but I didn't really know how it was done. Like, yeah, they're using computers and programs. I have no idea. Like, I don't even know how I'd even discover what that is. And so reading that, like, really just like made it feel obtainable. Like that is doable. Like, there are real people who are going to schools and being taught how to do this, and there's places that you can learn from. Like, so this is something I want to do. And so reading that article, it was then like, hey, what do I do? Is that where I go to school? Like, can I, when I graduate, high school, do I then like move up there? Like, should I do that? And then discover there's a few other places like that. The Art Institute was in Southern California, and I did go tour that school with my, at the time, girlfriend, who is now my wife. We went down there and did all that, and there was a few like Blizzard alumni who were coming back, and this was all like pre-World of Warcraft. And like to try and like that's funny. To try and excite some of the new potential students, they were showing off some early character models and renders of like World of Warcraft assets before it was officially announced. And so I remember connecting those dots years later, like, oh man, like that's what that was. That's really rad. And then reading about companies like Full Sail, like University, I think they're based out of Florida. I've sent messages, contacted, and attempted to like see how much would this cost, how realistic would it be for me to attend, how could I really have an education and maybe making video games. But yeah, the problem I have is life costs money, and paying rent, paying bills, and things like that. So I was, my wife and I were living out on our own, like technically even during like the senior year of high school. So like it was interesting to like try and like have these dreams to do these things, but also try and have reality be there. So all those things kind of got put on hold, and I never really got to explore that as an educational option. So that was like the first swing at trying to get into like games and everything. And then like I said, like wanting to like make music and everything became another avenue of mine. And so like creating sound effects and sound design and doing things like that, I thought that was kind of a specialized thing I could maybe do. So I started doing that. I went to some college and got a certificate for like the recording arts from Cypress College to do like sound effects and sound design stuff. I've been able to like do a handful of like games, but never been able to like branch out and like, be a part of like a bigger or even like a medium-sized team to help like put together like a larger project. But still just circling how I can get involved with games. Then, like I said, comic shop, that was a job I was working while I was trying to attend college and still pay the rent. And that, I don't want to say delayed my like gaming interests or anything like that at all, but like definitely getting involved there, like seeing like the creative writing, seeing the storytelling, seeing like the production and like art and everything come through. It felt to me like, hey, like, games may require a team of people. Comics require just a handful of people. Like maybe I can just start and like try this. This is the creative output I really want. I want to create, and I just don't know how I can, get that done, possibly. But this is maybe the first step I can take. So living in that world for a while, about a decade of being in and around comics. I mean, I'm still around comics. I'm staring at a giant stack of comics on my desk over here. And then from there, like, now I live in Arizona. My wife and I moved out here. We, doing better. We have kids now. We have a house. Like, we're living our life and comfortably. And I'm still obsessed in love with video games. And so a couple years back, it just reading again magazines like Retro Gamer and some of like those cool like large like European format magazines. Just were like, kind of gave me an idea of like, what if I had a giant coffee table book that was just like, hey, about like the love of like the PlayStation. Like that's always been my my favorite thing. Like that was the right time of my childhood. The original PlayStation, everything I was the right age to kind of come and grow with that. And so I started putting a book project together. And because of the knowledge gained making comics, and because of like, knowing like, I mean, I knew enough to think I could do it, and I knew enough to think that there wouldn't be any obstacles in my way, that I started it, and I discovered all of the obstacles, and I discovered all the things that were going to make it impossible. But just really cool creative advice I'd always gotten over the years is like, the reason the things you see on the shelf, the reason the things you have in front of you exist is because people didn't stop. People never took no for an answer. People never allowed anything to prevent that completion. And so every time I hit a roadblock, I was like, well, figure it out. Like, what do I need to do? Do I need to rebuild this, retool this? Did I make the wrong file size or format for this? Did I not partner with the right, printing company for a quote on this? Like, is there a cheaper route to go here? And so, like, I just continued to kind of persevere and force myself to make sure that this project was going to be completed. And it was all a visual book. Actually, it's sitting next to me. This like PlayStation book I made. So it's like, I have like that blurred camera thing on here, but it's like a big hardcover, and then internally, like, it's just all screenshots and like the information of like the release dates of the games, but no like write-ups or anything. But it was a cool coffee table book like I wanted to do. And once I finished that project, it was just super motivating to think like, okay, well, now am I going to commit to like writing and actually like doing research on these games, digging into the histories, like starting to put like my own words and voice in like print and everything. Like, can I, actually do that? And, the answer is yes, I can, but self-doubt and everything trying to stop you from doing that is what, is going to get in your way. But yeah, I just kind of kept at it and, got that first book out there. And even though it wasn't perfect and I learned a lot of things, like, all the things I learned along the way is what helped the next thing be better, and the next thing after that be better, and the next thing after that be better, and has let me continue to kind of like, put out these, now multiple avenues of books and zines and stuff like that. So, it's been crazy.
I love that because you hit on like exactly the thing I had when I started doing this, of just like, I felt like I knew enough that I could do it. And you get far enough to be like, yeah, okay, I can do this. And that's when you go, oh, how the hell do I do this? Or, oh, I hadn't considered this. What should I, like we talked about doing video for the podcast. I might cut that out, so I'll mention it again. And I was at the beginning, I was just like, yeah, I'll do video. And then I was unsure about it. And then I was like, well, it's gonna do a lot. And, like you said, like, the only answers at that point are keep going and figure it out or stop. And I was like, well, I don't want to stop, so I guess we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, gosh, and I think that's such an important part of it, is like having the confidence to start and then letting the momentum of it carry you, and kind of understanding, because it's so easy to not do something before you've started it, because you just don't have to do anything. You're just like, well, I can stop doing this right now because I haven't done anything. So, okay, cool. But
yeah, it's so motivating to like that's the thing that allowed me to keep going. It was actually having a finished thing, like being able to successfully be like I did this. This is done. This is complete. I actually completed that. Like, that was like more motivating to like start the next thing so quickly and get involved in the next thing so quickly, because it's like, it's possible. Like, you can kind of see it through. Like, I remember the first comic I did, I worked at, like I said, a comic shop, and one of like the part-time guys, the owner had two shops, and so it was a guy who worked at the other shop. He was just some part-time kid, and he was just a kid, like, I don't hold anything against him or anything like that at all, but like, I remember one time he was like talking crap, I will say. I'm not sure if expletives are not on podcasts. I probably should ask for that.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, he was saying some shit, and it was just weird to me. Like, I was like, he was like, kind of like poking holes at it, like making fun of like the quality, just kind of putting down like the comic that I did. And I thought it was so weird. I was like, he loved like DC comics and like major mainstream comics from like legitimate, like high paid, like artists and writers, like with the full backing of like Warner and like all this stuff. Like, yeah, my comic is not going to match up 1-to-1 to that comic. And I'm okay with that. Like, I understand that. And I'm not saying that like that doesn't mean that my comic can't still be fun or entertaining or, like be worth reading or have like some type of enjoyment or joy found from it. Even if you were like a stranger picking it up. Like, I mean, I made it for me and everything, and like other people enjoying it is awesome. But like, it's just so weird to have somebody like crap on it, and then like so like, I didn't like confront it, but like I had conversation with him about it, and like he talked about his own ideas and like, oh well, like I have a story for this, blah 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 blah, blah. And it was just like, cool, man, do it then. Like, until you do, like, here's my comic literally on the shelf right here that we can buy. Yours doesn't exist, but like let's go ahead and keep talking about how mine's bad. And so like that's probably been the only negative interaction I've ever really had about any of my like products. I mean, it's more of like you just don't hear anything, and like I'm just curious to know. Like, I mean, people have bought like my stuff. Like, was it cool? Did you like it? Did you find some joy in it? Like, let me know. That I would love to know. But yeah, the only negative ever came from like that in my entire like kind of creative outlet, and that really like was just the right one to have, because it's like, you know, like what negativity or what like naysayer is going to say anything to me about what I'm doing? Like if you don't enjoy it, that's fine. Like if you like critically find something that's just, you know, not good about it, like great, like I can respect that and trust that. But just to like say it's not good because you have a better idea to do something, but your idea doesn't exist, like you can continue to sit there and, you know, not have any involvement in my, you know, creative world, because like it's just not worth my time, effort, or energy to have that in my process, you know, like I'm doing what I'm doing because either the thing that I want to make doesn't exist, or maybe there's not like a refined version of what that is. And my goal, like, or not my goal, but my joy would be if somebody came along and did a better version of my books and like did like a better history on like PlayStation games and did like a bigger hardcover and all that stuff. Like, oh my gosh, guess what? I win, because that's an awesome thing that I would buy and love and enjoy. Like, so mine aren't to say that mine are the best. Mine are, I mean, the things that I'm doing, and there's no implication that like they're better than anything else anybody else is doing. Like I'm just contributing to like the shared like creative output that we all have, and being able to participate in that and, you know, have books on a shelf somewhere, like that is still so crazy to me. And like it's just, you know, it fills me with like pride that like I was even able to like, you know, push myself to like ensure that they were finished and done and there. So like if one person even finds entertainment and value and joy out of it, you know, then that's what's worth doing, you know, because I'm not selfishly doing it for anybody else but me. Like I wanted this thing to exist. Like I really wanted a book, you know, books and zines and stuff like this on my own shelf. So being able to be the one to do it, awesome. And if it inspires and creates somebody else to do bigger and better things of that, even better. We all win from that, and we're all like kind of sharing that same kind of like output and hobby of, you know, books and publishing and production of like the hobby that we all love in video games. So yeah, not sure where that tangent came from, sorry, but that's creative stuff, man. It's
and
great.
You were worried about filling time. But no, I think anybody who's making creative works like this would sort of echo that statement of like if somebody sees my thing and that inspires them to do something similar or different, but it inspires them to do that thing, and that thing ends up being better for whatever reason, that's great. It inspired you to make a thing, and so that's great. That's exactly what it did. And you hit on a thing that it's been amazing. It's come up every single person that I've talked to, of you got to make the thing for you. You have to want to make the thing, and you have to make the thing how you want it, and you have to do it for yourself. You can't be like, I'm going to do this to make money. I'm going to do this for whatever. You have to be like, I'm making this for me. And then if other people like it, that's great. But this is the thing I wanted to make how I wanted to make it. And then there it is. Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure that's just wise advice that's been given from a lot of folks. It stuck with me. We had Rick Remender. He's a comics writer. He's probably one of my top 3 favorite of all time and everything. We had him in the shop for like different signings and events and stuff like that over the years while I was working there. And he gave me that advice, like, you know, knowing that I wanted to create books and everything, and chatting with him about his process. Like that was one of the first things he said was like, don't do it for anybody else. Like, do it for you. Like, if you're trying to come into it to be a rich millionaire, like the best comic book writer is not a rich millionaire who's, you know, like living large or anything like that at all. So don't, you know, if you're going to try and do it for money, you're doing the wrong thing. But if you're going to do it, like do it for the reasons you want to do it. Like tell the stories you want to tell. If there's one that's not out there that doesn't exist yet, like, and that's the story you want to share, like share that. Don't write for what you think somebody wants to read or what you think somebody wants to see. Write for what you think is interesting to you and that you would want to read, and it's always going to be good. You know, it might not be great, it might not be perfect, but it's always going to be good, right? At least. And so, that's always in the back of my brain, you know, and like, it's just really motivating words like that kind of help, you know, keep you going when you're staring down the mountain of like either a new project or like, you know, is this worth continuing down? Like, what am I doing next here? So,
you got to have things like that in the back of your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the big reason, like you said, is that's what keeps you going. Is because if you're doing it for money, you'll always find a reason to be upset about money. You know, you will always be not making enough money, and for the reality and like just emotionally. But if you do it for, you're like, this is the story I want to tell. This is how I want to do it. This is the thing that I want to make. Like you said, like for you specifically, I want to make books about these games that I love, that I enjoyed. And if that, you know, gets people excited about the games, that's cool. But I want to make a book that celebrates these games. Hey, guess what? Boom. You made a book, you celebrated the games. Done, fulfilled. You know? And so it's so much easier. It's so much more fulfilling when you set that goal and attain that goal, rather than I want to sell 1 million copies. I want to have one of the biggest Kickstarters ever, all of these other things. Because then if you don't do it, then the whole project was a waste in that way. And you're not gonna be excited about it. You're not gonna be excited to dive into the next one. And
Exactly.
so I love it. Comes up every time. Everyone has said it so far, and it's great. And just part of why I love talking with creative people, because they're always excited about the next one. And it's I think it's because of that, because they're in love with the process of it. I'm trying to keep all this stuff in my brain. Usually I'm only talking to people about one thing, and so it's easy to remember.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like you mentioned, all like the brandings and things. When I was doing my comics, I just made the negative was my company, quote unquote company, like branding, my publishing, like, you know, like title and everything. And so the comics I've done are negative, just like a little black square with the word negative in white, and, you know, kind of invert it, you know, if I ever wanted to do it for style and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Anything I do creatively, like writing, anything, I'll just, you know, this will be my little fake publishing name. This will be fine. And then I started doing the games, the game books and everything. And the first few game books I did were all under this negative umbrella. I'm like, okay, cool. But I don't have an LLC for it. If somebody goes and snatches that, like, cool, you can cease and desist me on like these like older properties that I have. But it just, for something I realized I was thinking about, I was like, oh, you know what? I probably should have come up with something like more games related, or something that has like more of like a branding appeal to it, or something like that, you know? So then I was like, yeah, well, maybe one day I'll get around to that. Shoot, I should have thought of that in advance. So I just started putting out the books and started doing that anyway. And then I got the idea for my podcast, and, you know, to do my podcast is called Pixels and Polygons. And the artist I had dropped some cool little like animated, like a pixelated robot and a polygonal like dinosaur. Just nice little cool characters. He'd done like some of the cover artwork and some of the like stickers and stuff like that I've made. He's done the artwork for all the books I have done so far. And so I just hired him to like come up with a little logo, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Then I was like, wait, Pixels and Polygons, like that could be the publishing name. Like, why don't I just use that? Like, that makes sense. Like, oh, dang, I should have. So like retroactively, like I'm like, all right, well now this will be like my branding. So even though I was doing my books, the 32-bit library books, they were just called 32-bit library, and I have like a convention banner, and I have like some marketing stuff that just shows like Darren Hupke's 32-bit library. But then I realized, like, now doing the podcast and doing other things, it's not all 32-bit library, but it is could be all Pixels and Polygons. And then I started doing the zine and coming up with a name for the zine. I'm like, yeah, retro game zine. That's easy. It tells you exactly what it is. It is no flash, like exactly that. And then I was like doing a little logo design for that. And I was like, oh, you know, I could use like a little Pixels and Polygons presents retro game zine. That way I can kind of tie it all in together there. Like, yeah, let's do that. And so, yeah, now I have my website. I'm just so confused about, like, you know, so many different logos and things. I have Pixels and Polygons, I have the retro game zine, I have a 32-bit library, but I set up an LLC. I actually did the Zen business, you know, LLC payments, and did all these things to like actually start Pixels and Polygons. And so now what I'm telling myself I'm doing now, it's all of my output, all of my creative output for all my game stuff. It's all Pixels and Polygons presents whatever the thing is and stuff. And so now I've tried to unify it all after having 3 different, you know, watermarks and like splash things and designs and all that stuff, and having like it just way different, too many directions going all at once. And I think that's definitely a fault of mine. Like I would much rather like start making like breaking ground and doing the thing before I thought about every single like corner or potential turn or obstacle that might come up. And so like, yeah, if I was a little bit more deliberate and slowed down and like thinking like, like being more purposeful and planning, like maybe I would have foresaw some of that stuff, but as it is, it hasn't ruined any of my projects. It hasn't made any of them, like lower quality versions of themselves. It's just kind of made some branding and publishing design things maybe a little confusing for folks. But at the end of the day, it's fine. The books are still exactly what I wanted them to be. So it all worked out.
Well, and the value of the internet is like, oh, here's this page for this, and hey, it's real easy. You just change that URL and make it point over here or anything like that. You started with the PlayStation book, which I saw on your website. It's gorgeous. I love the long layout. That's really fun.
And that was one of the problems too, because it is not a standard book size or anything. I don't know what I did. I mean, I opened up InDesign and I was thinking like, okay, how big do I want this page to be? And I think I looked at like maybe a retro gamer or something, and I measured how wide it was. And I was like, cool, I want the pages to be this wide. And then I tried to see how tall it was. And I didn't realize I could just Google and find out that retro gamer is like an A4 sized paper. Like that is a standard, that is one that's used worldwide. Like that is a standard size and everything. But I didn't realize there were standards or things like that. So I'm just like measuring that. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I measured how tall it was. And then I got like a quote from the printer on that. And it was going to be like $16,000 or something like that. I'm like, whoa, oh no, I can't do that. I mean, I was like, gosh, well, if I cut this in half, that'll cut that size down or the price down in half. So I'll just shrink that down. And so, but it's no longer now any type of like standard size or anything. And so the printer I used had to like, custom cut like the paper and binding and then custom make the slipcase and everything for it. And had I picked like a standard size or a more traditional size, like it would have been easier for them to do all of the production stuff and probably would have made it significantly cheaper to produce. But I didn't know any of that. And it was all decided because I opened up an InDesign file and put in these size dimensions and we're like, yep, this is how big the book's going to be. And then once I was done and I sent it to the printer, they were like, nope, you didn't have any bleed. And I'm like, what's bleed? Just stretch. They were like, oh, you need to have like at least 3 millimeters running off on all sides so that when we cut the paper, it'll look exactly as you intended to look. So any images on the edge need to extend all the way to the bleed. I'm like, oh, well, can't you just stretch the picture? And they're like, no, this is your production in your book.
No, this
you
is your
can
problem.
Stretch the picture. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll go in there. And then learning InDesign, I couldn't just stretch it. I actually had to go in and alter the layout and everything. And I'm sure I could have done it in the file I was in, but I was just so confused self-teaching myself that I ultimately threw it all out and said, fine, new file with that bleed and everything. And I literally had to hand drag and drop and basically redo the book all over again a second time and then submit that to the printer. They were like, cool, that's it. And then when I received it, I'm like, I don't notice a difference between the proof I got originally and what this is in front of me here. But I guess all of that mattered from a production standpoint. But at least I learned my lesson. I need to know bleed. I need to know document setup. I need to know all of that stuff is like set in advance, because that was so much boring work to have been excited to build all the pages and see all that happen. Like every new page was cool to like pick the pictures and pick the screenshots I was using. But then to do it a second time, and I'm doing the exact same thing again. Nothing was new. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a real test and trial here on me. But obviously, if I quit and said, okay, I guess I'm just not going to do this book anymore, like it would have just all ended there. So so now I am far more thought in advance of like, what's the book size? Make sure it's like a standard. Make sure I'm looking at production and document settings. Make sure I'm well aware of CMYK and RGB, because all of that matters as well too for like a color and printing stuff. All things Darren didn't know when he thought, yeah, this computer program lets me put images in here and then I can just send it to a printer and they'll print it. It's that easy.
Right, yeah. The program will figure it out.
Yeah,
the program knows what I need.
Yeah, I was smart enough to know just enough to make me dangerous, and then dumb enough to like have to learn it all over 3 times and challenge myself. But it's beautiful. That was the PlayStation book.
I've definitely had to do that with projects where it's just like, well, I guess I have to do this whole thing again because of a thing I didn't know about. All right, here we go.
And who's there to tell me what not to do? There's nobody.
Yeah,
it's just you.
That's a thing that came up in one of the earlier episodes, specifically about TTRPG. But there's a lot of publishing stuff, a lot of publishing crossover that I'm surprised there's not more knowledge share between independent publishing and independent like TTRPG design. One of the things, I don't know if I've ever said this out loud anywhere before. One of my like dream projects, one of the things, if it's like, if I had whatever money and could just, my job could be the thing that I decide I want to do. I would just run a print shop. I would just run a print shop for people to be like, hey, here's my zine. I want to print my zine. And it's like, okay, cool. Here's all the right paper. Here's the right sizes. Here's all the cuts and all of that. I would just run like an artisan print on demand shop where it's just like, yeah, send me what you want. I'll put it together. I'll print it, and then we'll ship it all out. But
yeah, that's the dream. Where are you at now? Where is that person now? It would make so much easier. Darren would be infinitely ahead right now if all of this wasn't in my way.
But so what I was leading to, 32-bit library is kind of is the thing that I knew you for. The thing I sort of came across from you first was 32-bit library, which so that Darren doesn't have to talk about his stuff the whole time, are these really gorgeous books based around mostly individual publishers from the PlayStation era, and just gorgeous big old books. Like you said, like you wanted to have these coffee table books. What was sort of the what was the sort of move between that first original big PlayStation book of like, I did a book, I did it, to like a series, like, and a collection and sort of the shrinking, but then also a continuing series of books?
Yeah. It was that I did the project, like I put something together and made a physical book and made a physical item with a PlayStation book, like rad. It taught me a little bit about like research and design, all that stuff. Like I wanted to make sure inside it has like all the SCUS or SLUS numbers for all the games. It has the release date, it has the developer, it has the publisher, and has the game's title. And then it has screenshots for every game. So going through and having like a numbers file or Excel. I'm an Apple guy, so I use numbers. So if I say numbers, you can just substitute Excel, and it will be all the same thing. But yeah, having a numbers document, having that in front of me, like that taught me like more like organization and format for that. So like I went and I wanted to make sure like I got every original Sony published game for that first book. So there's 151 games. I went to Wikipedia and I was like, okay, I can find a list of all the PlayStation games that were released in the US very easily. Wikipedia, here I come. Boom, found Wikipedia, copy and pasted, put it into a file, and then Google result had like another one, and I'm like, oh, here's another file, but this has more. Like Wikipedia had, I think, release dates, publisher, developer, but I don't think it had like the SLUS and SCUS numbers, which again, that means nothing. Nobody cares about those numbers. I care about those numbers on the spine of the games. They all have their own unique little identifier, and like as a kid, I remember looking at the spine and like, oh, SLUS-0201. Oh, okay. So this was like an earlier game. Okay. It wasn't like later in the PlayStation. Like, why did little Darren care? I don't know. He cared enough to remember that those numbers were unique, special numbers for all those games. And if I'm going to put a book together, yeah, why not have these numbers a part of this? So found a whole separate list on a separate website. I think it was PSX Data Center. I want to make sure I give credit to these folks. I think that's where it was at, but they had a whole master list of all the games, and so I copy and paste that, and then sorted it alphabetically and paste it into a column next to the numbers file in Wikipedia. And of course, it was going to line up flawlessly, and it didn't, because there was like 17 different game variances, and I'm like, wait, why do they have 17 more? Like, wait a minute, is there not a genuine like master list of every single game that was released? Like, this is the internet. Like, this should already have been found. And
someone else should have solved this, and then we've determined.
Yeah, and so like that's when I started realizing like no, like people do all these things. Like fan sites, fan like driven like communities and things. Like they're the ones who get into the deep weeds about all the things that we love and everything. And like, you know, if I'm in this obscure wasteland of SLUS and SCUS like number formatting like on these PlayStation games, is there not been somebody crazy enough to want to have this whole master list and then share it potentially? Like, I don't know. There's no way I'm the first person to do this. So I continue to browse the internet, all stuff, and everybody I found a few different lists, and they all had variants to them and everything. And then PlayStationLibrary.com, like you know, it's run by this guy Jason Dvorak, who does like a YouTube channel called Game Rave TV. I discovered his website, and he is crazier than I am about PlayStation games and collecting things. He has a full. He's not the only person like you know who has one, but he has a complete set of every U.S. release or North American released PlayStation game. So he has the full collection of all of them, the rarities and all. And then he goes through and because he had all of that, then he went and got all the variants. Some games sort of had like a Toys R Us exclusive cover, or this was packaged with this light gun in this color if you bought it from you know here. So he went and got all the variants, all the greatest hits. You know, he's even gone through and gotten all like the demos and demo discs and things like that. But he literally has a website and it has all of that on there, pictures of everything. He scanned all the discs and front and back of the manuals. Like Jason is super rad. He is like me with time, effort, energy, and money that I never had growing up. So like he did it all. So I started using a lot of his source and in chatting with him, and it finally puts together a numbers file with all of the documents, with all of the game titles, publisher, developer, that SLUS or SCUS number, and like everything finally formatted it out. And then I started to cross-reference and make sure release dates were in order, and that's how I made the first book. So again, that was just screenshots and useless game information that nobody cares about. Then my next challenge was though, like, I mean, I didn't want to be like an archivist and like you're just doing it for like the data, like comic books and everything that I've read before, like the creativity of it, like my voice, like I do love writing, I do love storytelling, I do love like, having that aspect of it. So, you know, being a fan of like all those magazines growing up and everything, I thought, you know what, like I'd love to like challenge myself to write about some of these games. And again, go into the internet. You want to read about Metal Gear Solid or Final Fantasy VII, you have gigabytes and terabytes and whatever's larger than that of like people writing about it on their own websites and blogs and major news outlets, major websites. Like you can read plenty about those games. But if you want to read about like Incredible Crisis or you want to read about NFL Game Day 98, like, you know, you don't have as much written, documented and like coverage of like those games. And so, I wanted to do the next book and do it on, you know, I didn't know I was going to do publisher by publisher first. I was just kind of looking at like all the games that were out there, like if I was going to like pick and choose like a genre maybe or whatever it may be, but I wanted to make sure like every game got equal coverage. So the biggest games weren't going to get 40 pages while the smallest game got like a little quarter page with like 2 pictures and that was it, you know? So looking at it like that way, I ended up looking at like Capcom, like they ended up having like, you know, 40 something releases on the PlayStation. They covered so many different genres, you know, having like Breath of Fire, Mega Man, Street Fighter, Resident Evil. Like I love Capcom games. So having them have like that much variety of genre, like I just felt like that would be neat to maybe start there. Like, and then in my head, I was thinking like, maybe that's the target. Maybe I just do publisher to publisher and I don't do every single publisher, but like I just, you know, the major ones, the ones that have like a decent sized library and like great genre coverage and everything, and I can go from there. So that was the goal, to blow up the size of that original PlayStation book, but add writing, equally cover all the games inside, and make sure that as much as, you know, Capcom's, as much as I love, you know, Street Fighter Alpha 3, I wanted to make sure that One Piece Mansion or Fox Hunt or like these really obscure games they put out also got write-ups, coverage, interview, or like finding old reviews, seeing what people said at the time, like what made the game unique or special, just like things that, you know, if you were never going to go back and play those games yourself, you can at least get a little development history, what made that game special, and what people said about it then and how it stands up now type of vibe. Like that was the target for it all. So that's where the volume 1 of 32-bit library kind of started from there, and then expanded on my master list of data that I already had done from that PlayStation book. I was able to then just sort all of Capcom games out, new file, boom, there's all 40-something games right there, and started that process. And then it was trial and error still too. I didn't know how many, how long of these write-ups, how long should they be, how many screenshots should be inside, what's the sizing, all that stuff I should do. But again, knowing that Retro Gamer magazine size, I don't know why I'm obsessed with that, but hey, I now learned that is A4 sized. Why don't I just make sure I open a document, do it at A4 size, and we'll see what we can do from there. And then I found a new printer to work with as well, and having that more standard size, being more prepared for that, and got a much better printing quote on what a 200 and something page book of that size would cost, and completely doable. So there was obviously all of the writing and research of it all was all in front of me to have to get done before it would be printed.
So when you sat down to work on this, did you say, I'm going to go back and I'm going to play all of these Capcom games? Did you I'm just going to watch, because you mentioned a thing that I love doing when I'm playing a retro game, most of which I haven't played, is I love going back and looking at reviews from the time. Mm-hmm. Because I think there's a lot to be said about someone reviewing Silent Hill 1 or Silent Hill 2 or Resident Evil 2 now, if it's the first time you've ever played it. But I think there's something especially for this sort of book to be said about what did they say in EGM? What did they say in GamePro? What sort of tips and tricks articles did they write for this sort of game? So did you base it off of just historic reviews? Did you play them yourself? What sort of research did you do?
Yeah, I mean, my goal was to look back at old reviews, look back at old coverage from magazines, because that's fun to do. I love to dig through old magazines. There's a website called Retro Mags that, legally, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't download them if you don't own them type of thing, but if you do own them, you can download them from there. But it is a great research tool. That's available. So looking through all the old magazines. But yeah, my goal was to read old reviews, look at old coverage, but also kind of go off my own history. I didn't pick the PlayStation because it was something I was unfamiliar with. I picked the PlayStation because it was something I spent, my entire childhood playing and everything. So I had a familiarity picking Capcom. I had already personally played a lot of those games, quite a few I didn't, and were surprises and new to me and everything. So my original goal, and this is where I was smart enough to know what I wanted to do, but dumb enough to realize that it wasn't going to be realistic until I ran into this obstacle. But the internet is filled with screenshots. Of course, I'm going to be able to find plenty of screenshots to just download and make this book. It's going to be so easy. All I do is go to Google and I type in Street Fighter Alpha 3, nailed it, hundreds of results. There we go. Move on. Resident Evil, hundreds of thousands of results. Move on. But again, I go to search for Fox Hunt, this FMV game from Capcom early on. No, wait, there's only dozens of screenshots here. A lot of them have odd watermarks, poor resolution, not even the same aspect ratio as some of these other ones. So trying to put the book together using different file formats, different resolutions, different quality, finding them without watermarks, I realized I'm not going to be able to get this done. So I didn't know how long it was going to take to write the book, and I had no deadline for myself. I just knew this is what I was going to be working on. But I definitely thought it wouldn't have taken me too long if I was just going to be downloading screenshots and reviewing magazines and then doing a little write-up. But as it turns out, for quality control and everything, I then had to make the decision to play through all the games myself. So I did download it. I wanted original hardware and those original resolution, I wanted that look of it all, but I couldn't physically buy all of these games and do all that, so I had to use an emulator to play through a lot of the games. But I made sure that I found an emulator that had no by default turned on like enhancements or things that like, made the games look better than they should have. There's a lot that can do that, but I made sure like I was trying to disable absolutely everything and make sure it was just as original as it could possibly be. But like my goal wasn't not to necessarily be that, exactly perfectly historically accurate. It's for nostalgia, like looking back and be able, if you were a fan of these things, to look back and if you see that screenshot, does it remind you and you remember exactly how that was? Like that was the goal. So then the project in scope just grew because yes, I had to play through all the games now, capture the screenshots and everything, and that's easy for a game like Mega Man. I can play through and play that in an afternoon and have a good time with it. But playing through Breath of Fire 3 and 4, like on top of all these other games, like that's, a little daunting. So I also used some like from game facts and everything, like finding old save files and then find out how to convert those save files to this emulator and then find out how to load those save files converted from game facts from this emulator. I was able to find like later points of the games for games that would be like maybe too impossible to do in like a realistic timeline and everything. So yeah, played through all the games as far as I, as much as I could, and got hands on like being able to jump ahead with some save states and stuff. But yeah, physically played and took all the screenshots and for all the games, and that let me have the same resolution, the same file size, the same like quality of it, and made sure the book like would look the same start to finish from just playing it on that side of things. So that was it was a lot to kind of take on, but ultimately that's the process that it needed to be if it was going to have like the right like level of quality and everything I wanted out of it. So yeah, that's how I got going with the Capcom one, the first one, and it continued on through even up to the 4th volume.
Yeah, that was gonna be the next question. Was once you got through it, did that just become your process for the rest of them? Of like, hey, I'm just gonna capture my screenshots myself. I'm gonna load up emulators and load up save states and do what I got to do, and that's just how you started from then on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then that's exactly that. So I would I go in and confirm all the boring data of it in the spreadsheet, and then I dig through like old magazines and everything like that, and I screenshot or screen grab like those reviews of just the game and put it in a Word document or Pages, as again Apple user. And every game has like my space for my write up, and then like any like reference images of like previews, reviews, and things like that I want to look through. But I basically get all of that information in front of me, and then once all of that's ready to like the writing can start happening. Like before I start writing, I'll play through all those games, takes the screenshots as that final step. Screenshots are all captured. All of the research from like looking at old like interviews or reviews or all stuff, that's all captured in that Word document and everything. And then I'm just in writing mode where I'll write game after game after game. I'll just kind of keep going, like that's it's most time consuming is like it is still like the prep and design and like taking the screenshots and like laying out the book and everything. But I think the toughest part still is obviously the most original part, and that is writing up 600 to 800 words about every single game, and not making it sound like I have burnout or it's just the same copy and paste kind of format or anything at all. Like another thing I really wanted to make sure I did, not that criticism isn't important. Criticism is an absolute important part of the world that we live in, of games, of art in general. But I cannot stand negative people and people who just want to dunk on things or say like, oh, this sucks. This game was the worst in the series because it was so boring and bad, blah, blah, blah. Like, play something you like then. Tell us about a game you love. What was the last game you saw the credits on and were obsessed with? Like, tell me that game. Don't share your hot take on like the negativity of it all, People put time, effort, energy. They didn't set out to make a bad game. So like, if you're not helping anything, like move on. But yeah, I didn't want any of my write-ups to be like negative or hot takes or like, I didn't want to be, like some angry, game nerd kind of guy, but I get that character and I do enjoy some of that content. But, so I wanted to make sure I looked at these games through a lens of like, what was this game trying to do? What was it attempting to accomplish? Like, what was the unique mechanics it had even at this time? Are there modern takes on these mechanics or designs that like you can kind of see threads from here? Like where does this game now historically like stand, like reflecting back on it? But in that moment, what was this made this special? And then like some of the reviews and everything about it. So I wanted to make sure that like all the games got like their flowers for what it was that they were at least attempting to do or solve with their original ideas and concepts, whether or not they got to actually execute those or not. But yeah, like doing all those writing and all that write up is like the most exciting part to do, because it's the part where the self-doubt and your own brain can get in the way, because you're like, is this good enough? Is this good enough? Do I need to redo this? Like, I want this to be right. Do I just throw this all out? Like, do I need to just stop picking over and parsing over these words? And you know what? This is good. This successfully told this story. Move on to the next one, or else you're never going to finish. And so it's that part that you kind of engage that side of your brain the most on in my process anyway.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense, because that's like you said, that's the part that is the most you. It's the part that you have the most kind of contribution to. It's the part that's the most in your voice. So that's the part that you're going to obsess over and want to tweak and want to get just right. And want to fix 1,800 times. If it's just like, how many times, okay, I'm playing to this, but I took a screenshot. I don't know if I took that screenshot right. Maybe I should try pressing the button slightly different. Maybe I should save it as like a JPEG. There's only so much. It's like, okay, there, I took the screenshot. There, we can move on.
I still found ways to be obsessive about that. For some reason. Again, I mentioned like NFL Game Day, but like in some of the sports games, I grew up in Southern California, and Angel Stadium. I'm never was a baseball fan. Baseball is boring. Again, I'm not a hot take guy, but I will say that baseball is boring. There's my hot take. But it was really cool because they had a unique stadium. They had like kind of this like weird little like outfield spot where it kind of opened up, and you can almost see across the freeway. And ultimately, their hockey arena, it used to be the Arrowhead Pond. Now it's the Honda Center. But that's where like the Ducks would play for NHL games. But the little like divide in the stadium where there was this like little grassy green little hill, and where it opened up between the stands, it was kind of like a unique design. And so I remember playing one of the early MLB games, and that was when like the Angels got, from the California Angels, they got redesigned to the Anaheim Angels. And I noticed like that was one of the things on the back of the case it called out was realistic like in-game stadiums, because games used to just have these generic stadiums and not actually do that. But as games had more and more disk space, and as the PlayStation generation was kind of rolling around, developers started to do that with all of that available data. So it was cool to see that Angel Stadium and how it got rendered over time. Like, I'm sure other stadiums did this, but for me personally, like, I just had this attachment to Southern California and everything. So I would then, in all of the screenshots for all of the baseball games, I would make sure there was a screenshot of Angel Stadium from behind home plate, so you can kind of see what that looked like. And so, again, nobody cares about this. Nobody is buying my book to then flip through and look at the MLB screenshots of Angel Stadium to see how it renders. But I wanted to see how that looked over time and how that evolved. And then I was playing some Jeremy McGrath Supercross game. And you can go in and play in different stadiums around the world. And lo and behold, there was an Anaheim Stadium level you can select in it, and it was the exact same like baseball stadium and everything. And so I was able to take a screenshot of that. I tried to, in the race, try to get that point of the course, so I could angle the camera enough to get a similar screenshot of that all. But like seeing how that was rendered over the years in multiple different games now. It was just kind of a cool detail that, again, I wouldn't be able to have done that if I was just downloading or like Googling screenshots and everything. So the minute like I was burdened with having to take all these screenshots, it was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But then it also was like allowed me to have like this creativity in the storytelling, even, in deciding to do that. Like these pictures were all like, yes, it would have been easy just to jump in the games, capture a bunch, and just like throw some in there. But like they're all purposefully done for no reason. Like literally, like I said, nobody's looking through and noticing that like, oh wow, he has a nice color curve going from these 4 screenshots. It's almost like they all represent 4 different colors, and it's done on purpose. I did do it on purpose. It might seem random, but like I spent the time to do all of that. again, because it's my book and I wanted it to be done that way. And I mean, before this, I've never really even told people I did that with the Angel Stadium and everything too. But like, yeah, it's like I just held myself to like want to have that standard, or like, not to like, shortchange myself, because again, this isn't for somebody else. I didn't have a deadline to give this to somebody to be done with. I had a limited time to do this. So if I was going to do this, I wanted to make sure it was done a way that I was going to enjoy and love and see on the shelf and everything afterwards.
I love that. That sort of story is why I love doing this podcast, of just like, here's this silly thing that I really had no other reason to tell anybody in any other context except for right now when we're talking about it. I love that. Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. Are there any other little like weird themes, things like that?
Yeah, in the I think I started in the Namco book. So I did the big A4 sized books, the hardcovers with slipcases and everything. And then after I did the third book, I was able to make a paperback, a 6x9. That's it. Again, I have my stupid blurred camera filter on, but like this is the paperback size of them now. So I was able to like a little paperback and hardcover size like this with a different printer. And those are the ones that you can buy on Amazon and everything. But when I converted it into that smaller size, it wasn't like I couldn't just shrink that A4 page size down and fit perfectly. I had to have margins and bleed and all of the document size. Things I knew.
All of these things.
Yeah. So I set myself up for success there. But in remixing that in that smaller size, the Capcom book, I decided to like, hey, why not just like try and make all of the screenshots be 100% different from what they were in the big size book? Because why not? Why not? In my head, I was like so worried. I was like, oh my gosh, people bought this book from me. Like, are they going to be mad that I have this different format? Like, why? Like, are they going to want to buy it again? Like, or is this for new people? But if it's for new people and somebody doesn't want to miss out and they bought the old one, like, do they really want to buy the same book again? Like, I got to find some way to make sure that everybody could be happy if they purchased this. And so new screenshots was the gimmick. But yeah, anyway, when I was converting it into the paperbacks, like after the second book, I realized I was the one, I didn't realize it then, but like I'd already known, but like me having control over where the screenshots are, I decided I wanted at least the title screenshot to be in the same square on the same page of every single game. So if you're flipping through it, you'll always see the title screen on that same spot in the grid on the second page of every single game. And then in the Konami volume, the volume 3, I decided to go a little bit further, and in the options menu, a lot of them have like a controller settings menu, and there were just like really random, like different ways companies like rendered out like the PlayStation controller. Like they used like a weird little 3D model that looked kind of like low res and stuff. They used a hand-drawn like, image of it. They used like a generic one that wouldn't be legally binding for some reason, or they used one that had like the full details on it. But there was just enough unique. I just started noticing that they were like different enough for every game that I'm like, well, you know what? I want one of these screenshots to be that like options menu controller render. Like it could just be another generic screenshot of gameplay, but like, why not have like what this what the UI and options menu look like, and what this controller render look like, and all that stuff. And then in my I started adding like little commentary to some of the screenshots, like an old magazine would have, like little call out. And so I started having those screenshots be the ones that like I add a little comment to and all that stuff. So there's like, if you read just the story of all of the controller renders, like it's like it builds with excitement. Like, oh my gosh, they really nailed it with this one. Like I love the render. Like this is the first time we're seeing a DualShock. Like, oh wow, check this one out. It's at a 3/4 angle. This might be the best one in the book yet. Like, oh no, they really dropped the ball here. Like, wow, it's just 2D. And they only do that. Like, why do you want to read my running thoughts on what the options menu screen of the controller renders looked like of one screenshot of all these games? Again, books are for me.
I love it. No, that's so good. That's so good. But see that like you said, it's free. That's exactly the sort of thing that's just like, and it's a thing that you can only do after you've done it a few times.
Yeah.
In what you're not worried about is how am I going to put this all together? How am I going to do this writing? Where am I going to get the screenshots? The writing, you know, especially by the third book, but you're like, I've done it enough. I'll get to that when I get to it. The screenshots, I've got that handled. The layout, all of this. And then you're just like, all right, what weird little silly things do I want to do here? What if I put a screenshot of how the save icon looked as a blurb in, you know, just all the weird little touches that you can do once your mind isn't thoroughly engrossed with how do I do the thing.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, this is the first time I've really expanded upon it, and like talked about how like all these little details, like you know, this was the process. This was the time-consuming part of it all, but it was all for, you know, my reasons and all that stuff. I remember I was at a convention one time, and a guy who was not really interested in the books at all, he was just walking around and grabbing as many freebies as he could. And when I did not have any free stickers or anything for him, he was like just ready to walk away. And then, I'm nearly confident he said this to try and insult me, but he's like, can't you just like Google all this stuff and find this on the internet for free? And like, I wanted to almost like tell him like, oh yeah, like absolutely. But I was purposeful about these screenshots of the Anaheim Stadium and how the option screen looks and the title screen look and like all these things. But like, I was like, man, this guy's not worth it. And I was like, yeah, you could. Yeah, you can save some money. Go ahead. You can Google it right now. You're all good. And so just let him be on his way and everything. You know, like you don't have to buy my book. Like if it's not exciting to you, like that's totally fine. It's for the people who are excited by it and they could be interested in it. But it was just so weird, the passing comment like that. And I'm like, in my head, all of that went through there of like, no, I made all of these decisions. There's so many of these little details in there that are like, you can't just get that from Googling it. Like, but yeah, if you want to water it down to that and boil it down to, you know, reduce it down to like the least, you know, interesting and common denominator of it all, like, can you just Google all these screenshots? Yes, absolutely you can. Go ahead and go do that. That is free for you.
Have a good day.
Yeah, that's not even necessarily the point of the book. Oh, the other point of the book too is it's all in chronological order. So the first game in the book is the oldest game in their released cycle. And so it goes through, it's not alphabetically done or by genre or anything. It's all chronological. So again, as you flip through it, you can see screenshots as they get a stronger hold on like the hardware and developing for the PlayStation, you can see, you know, games look better and better and better as like the pages go on and everything too, which is again, another useless, you know, organizational detail, but one that makes the 32-bit library books the greatest books devoted to independent or individual publishers of PlayStation releases available in 6x9 format. Also, the only books dedicated to individual publishers covering only PlayStation games in 6x9 format. That's neither here nor there.
I was gonna say, I was like, we're gonna get detail at the end that's just gonna be like, it's the best thing that fits these 4 check marks. It's also the only, and so the best. That's how it works.
100%. You could also say it's the worst, but again, let's keep it positive.
Yeah, let's keep it positive. Yeah, there's no reason to bring that negativity around here. Just get your free sticker and move on. We're not negative here. My cat is being very attention-y and adorable. I'm
happy that my dogs are not as upset outside right now. I've got 2 dogs, and they're being mostly okay. I've heard a couple barks, but
yeah, that's good.
No interruptions.
That's good. Our dog is old and just sleeps, and that's, you know.
Oh my gosh, I have now a dog story. This is relevant. Oh, let me take a drink real quick.
No, go for it. Here, I'll join you.
So, childhood dog. In a lot of the family photos I have of me playing my video games, there's Radar right next to me. He was a border collie. Love that dog. He was our family dog for years. Yeah, Radar. I don't know where it came from.
Probably
but
MASH.
I always knew. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think we named him. I think we got him, and he was already had that name from like my grandparents who had him for a few months, and were like, "Oh, we don't like this dog. It needs to be walked and has too much energy." And it was like, "Yeah, it's a
border collie. Yeah, that sounds about right."
So we got him, which was the greatest thing ever. So we had him for 14 years, and I loved every minute with that dog. But I remember thinking, like, yeah, you know what? If I ever get another dog and it's a border collie, I have Radar. I'm going to name that dog Sonar. And again, as a 7-year-old kid, I don't know why I thought that was rad, but like that stuck with me for life. And so 5 years ago, during COVID, he was a COVID puppy. we got a border collie, my wife and I, and he's a brown border collie. My other one was like more like a blonde, kind of like lighter colored fur, but yeah, border collie. And I told her, she knew all about radar even before and all that stuff. But so when we got him, we knew that he was going to be sonar, but he's sonar. All I've called him was sonar and all that stuff. So a couple weeks go by, and one of my daughters comes up and trying to give him a little cute nickname, calls him Sony, and I'm like, oh my god. This is perfect. I've never thought of this, never realized the connection, didn't think about shorthanding his name, but called him Sony. And I just thought that was the raddest coincidence ever that our dog, named Sony, while I'm sitting here obsessive fanboying and making books about Sony PlayStation games. I'm like, damn right, my dog's named Sony. Yeah, I love it. Get over here, Sony. So, yeah, he's awesome.
She's like, come here, Sony. And you're like, wait, actually.
Yeah. And another really rad thing about her, my daughter, she's born December 3rd. And when I was going to go to one of the PlayStation experiences, the first PlayStation experience was in Las Vegas. They don't do those anymore. They did them for like 4 or 5 years. But it was around the anniversary of the PlayStation. And then I realized at that point, I had not put 2 and 2 together, but the original PlayStation was released in Japan on December 3rd, 94. My daughter was born December 3rd. And so I'm like, my oldest daughter shares the birth date with the PlayStation. Of course she does. Yep. Fantastic life. Keep going. Let's keep going.
It's how it all, it's, the funny ways that life seems to work out sometimes.
Yeah. And then, you start thinking about too much, and they're a giant for-profit corporation who can care nothing about me as an individual and all that stuff, but I care so much about what they do, their IPs and all that stuff. It is not a symbiotic relationship or anything. It's definitely one-sided, but like nostalgia does that. Bias and nostalgia does that. So I'll just keep on loving them. Warts and all.
Well, and I think that's the fun of or one of the sort of big enjoyments of retro gaming is a lot of it is not specifically around like this company I love Capcom. Capcom's such a great company. Like their Q2 during 1996 was so great. It's about sharing the memories and the excitement around that game. And for some people, like that time of your life of, I remember when I was a kid and I got this game and all of this, but being able to even now, like, oh yeah, the first time I played this game, for me, might have been a year ago. For other people, might have been 10 years ago. They remember coming home from school and playing it every day after school and all of this. And being able to have that sort of shared experience, that's what the fun is. It's not like, oh man, I sure love Kaz Harai. Like that's not really what people are excited about.
I do love Kaz, but yeah.
You're like, hang on, let's not.
I mean, your point 100% nailed it. Perfect. That being said, I do love Kaz.
I mean, I guess this segues into a fun conversation, or an interesting question, I should say. Hopefully, it'll be a fun conversation. Have you ever, in doing all of this, I know a lot of the books have like, contributor essays, that sort of thing, the retro game zines, that thing have contributor work. Have you ever got a chance to talk to like developers or people who were working on the PlayStation at the time around these specific games?
Not yet, no. And I've not thought of that. That makes sense. That would be cool to do. So I think that's the next steps. Makes total sense. Yeah. I mean, yes, because when I was originally doing the books, I knew my writing was going to be one thing, but I also wanted to make sure that, like, just in case my writing sucked, let's make sure there's something else in here people want to like pick this up for. And so I was a big fan of like Digital Foundry. Still am a big fan of Digital Foundry. I love their like YouTube content and DF Retro and John Linneman. Whenever there's a new video, I don't care what it's about, I will watch that and love it and everything. Like I'm subscribed and always excited when something new drops from them. I decided to just randomly shoot him a message saying like, hey, I'm writing a book on old like retro games and everything. Like, would you like to contribute an article? I'd love it if you talked about like the hardware of the PlayStation, or, because I'm doing all this about Capcom, like even like what was the conversion, like the the technology part of it all, converting a game from arcade to PlayStation. Like, you're that type of person. Would you want to write this? And so we came to an agreement and everything. And he was like, yeah. I'm like, so cool. So we came up with an idea, and he liked the idea of the book a lot as well. And so he actually wrote up a couple of the games himself. So not every single game was written by me. I think he did 2 games in that book. It may have been 4 actually. But he did his own write-ups for those, and those were the entries for the main entries for those games as well. And then he had his own original essay. And then when I started putting together, it was a little bit odd that it was just one person. Like, it was me and one person with a little bit of bonus content. Like, I should have a little bit more bonus, maybe like kind of sprinkle in a few other folks. And so I had used that Jason Dvorak's website from PlayStation Library a lot. And so, like, I reached out to him and was like, hey, you obviously like the PlayStation. I like the PlayStation. Let's be best friends. And we started chatting all that stuff, and he was super jazzed to contribute, and kind of writing from like the angle of like the collector, the obscure, hard to find game, the closet, like the secret gem, that people might overlook. He had like this cool contribution there, and wrote up a couple games as well. And so it kind of grew from there. Like in volume 2, a friend of Audie's, who's a producer with Limited Run or Digital Foundry, but also works for Limited Run, Audie Sorley, he did an article on like the audio and sound design of like Namco's games. And from there, he's basically done that for all the volumes going forward. And he retroactively wrote an audio story for Capcom's games that I put in the paperback version of it. And Kurt Collada from Hardcore Gaming 101, again, just a big website and a big resource, somebody who's been doing this for a long time and has written so many of his own like books. Love his stuff. And so also just, I mean, maybe it's because I don't have like a shame filter or something like that, but like I had no problem just reaching out and asking, like, hey, I'm making this book. Would you want to like come up with an arrangement or do something like that where he would participate and maybe contribute something to it? Like, this is what I want to do and why. And he was on board. And so he's been doing it with me, contributing with every volume so far. And I've kind of just like met and added folks along the way. Like volume 4 was the first one with it. His name's Sean, but he runs memcard.art, memcard.art. He's got like Blue Sky handles and all that stuff as well.
I love memcard.
He's been extracting all of the old PS1 memory card save data icons and everything, and like organizing those and having those on the web for everybody. And I was like, man, this would be really cool next to like the titles of all the games. Like I'm not going to just steal from him. He's doing this work. I want to make sure I like at least ask and everything. And so, like he was on board. Like, and we even did like some stickers for it, some memory card stickers for one of the promotional things to give away. But having his, or not his, but the work that he did in getting those memory card art, like all gathered up and compiled, and was able to make. I think that each of the individual game pages stand out even more because you can see the memory card save icon for every single game in there as well with all the game details. So it's just kind of snowballed, and more people have been able to help make each volume better and better. I think that logical next step is like, how do I now talk to or discuss or meet with a developer or somebody who's been involved like historically from maybe the inside of it all. I've gotten messages from Kickstarter backers and stuff like that who are like, oh yeah, I used to work at so-and-so back in the past, like love your books, they're great. And like it trips me out that like these people made the games that like I'm writing about, and like they're reading it like, oh, this is so cool. I haven't thought about asking them to hear their thoughts. So thank you for putting that in there. You don't know what you don't know, but I think that would make a lot of sense. I'm working on a 5th volume now. The angle for this one is greatest hits. So instead of it being about a specific publisher, it's just going to be 50 games that were re-released as like those ugly green greatest hits spined games. And this gives me a chance to have a lot of different like genres and publishers that may not be in their own individual book, but a chance for them to still be represented like in this and all that stuff. So maybe it makes sense in the greatest hits one to have some developer or inside conversation. So still in the work in progress stage of that, so it definitely has time to be done. So if this book is bigger and better, It's because of what you're doing. So there
Hey, listen, I just plant the seed, just ask a question and then make someone go, well, hey, now that you say that,
Yeah, this happened to me once before in a really embarrassing way in my comic book days. The series that me and the co-creator Johnny Flores, we created this character called El Toxico, and it was like the gimmick was like Mad Max meets a Saturday morning cartoon. So it's this exterminator who travels like a post-apocalyptic Mexico, and he's killing giant-sized bugs, as big as houses and stuff like that. And so we had a little like launch signing for one of the issues. And a guy came up to me and he's like, "Oh man, this is super rad! Like, I love the concept. It's a super fun read. Like, have you thought about releasing it in Spanish? I mean, it takes place in Mexico. Like, your main character's like from Mexico. Like, and I'm like, why have I never? Like, why did that thought never cross my mind? Like, a Spanish language version would make absolute and total sense. Like, oh my god, I'm so dumb for not thinking of this. And so that's always been when we complete, it's a slow burn project, and years later we still technically are still sending pages back and forth to each other. But when we ultimately like finish this like first little story arc and all stuff, I want to have somebody translate it into a Spanish language version finally, and it's all going to be because of Mr. Krager from The Signing in like 2015 or whatever that was. Yeah.
I love it. Those are the little things though, right? Is that, listen, that's the same thing like you talked about, is that editor going back and be like, come on, man, you got to set the bleed. And you're like, wait, what's bleed? What am I what do you mean? What are you talking about? It's, I love it though. And I'm sure you do know, but in the interest of, hey, people you could work with in the future. Do you know Sean Johnson?
Yeah. So he does YouTube videos, and I mean, probably I don't want to reduce him down to all that, but I'm pretty sure he's the one who did this really rad like Capcom video with like all of their releases like in video form. I may be confused there now, but yeah, basically it was like, man, this is basically my first book like in YouTube video form. This is so rad. Like I love that video, and I subscribe to him and also. But yeah, he's on Blue Sky. I follow him. I don't know him personally. I've not had a conversation with him or anything, but he is somebody I do follow on Blue Sky because of the mutual obvious interest in video games.
Yeah, I feel like he does almost exclusively PlayStation content. Like he's done a bunch of he's done a bunch of videos because he's in the UK, so I always really appreciate his videos because he talks about it from like a PAL region perspective and talks about the difference with PAL games and all of this. And so if you were doing something, he could be a really cool guy to talk.
I should shoot him out. I mean, again, for this greatest hits thing, it'd be great to have, maybe some more voices and some more thoughts and all that stuff to kind of help fill out the pages. So yeah, it makes total sense to reach out to him. I will definitely do that. And I love that. I try and be more inclusive about that as well. Like, so if I haven't been clear enough as it is, like all of mine are like from a North American, like US kind of release standpoint. And like you mentioned, like that was my time and place growing up here as a North American gamer and everything. But like, everyone has such a unique like entry and a way that like it impacted their lives at different times and things, because again, like the PAL region, like European players, they got games later than we did. Sometimes even like at the time when like Japan or the US would be playing like a major blockbuster game, they were like, oh cool, we'll see this maybe next year. And so like the zeitgeist for them is like a little bit different. And so like I always do want to try and make sure whenever I specific, like even in my writing now, I'm trying to be more inclusive to like notate like a North American release date, or like that's where this like angle is coming from, or this is where the focus of this writing is coming from this North American side of things. Because like to not say it and have the implication that like this is the like we in the US are the main characters, and like our release dates and timeframes are the most important, and like everything.
The game came out this date, no others. The game did not exist before this date.
Yeah, no. Let's make sure we're identifying that and making sure that obviously worldwide we all as gamers like we're able to enjoy these things, but like one is not better or more important or the main character of anything outside the other. It's the user involved and that time and place and purpose of all of it and all. So I think it's an important conversation and thought that we are more inclusive with our language when we talk about things like that.
And like you said, especially noting like, hey, this is when this came out in Japan, this is when it got to America, and then this is for whatever reason a year and a half later when it finally came out in the UK. I think there's a lot of interesting stories in gaming about the interplay and exchange between the US and the UK regions, and the ways that like things you might not expect. Like one of my favorite things is the ways that like some games were produced only in Europe, and if they came out in America, it was basically like, we're just gonna, port it, that didn't have like an American release. They just took the European release and released it here. And hearing those fun stories of like weird development, troubles, but in the way that it like, yeah, like we'll release it. There you go. It's easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's always fun to hear any of those stories. So secrets, 32-bit library volume 5 coming later. That's
sometime.
Yeah.
This year, my goal would, I think it's still probably this year, which is, I guess, still, it gives me a wide net to kind of cast there. Mm-hmm. I had a book. It's not around me. It's on the shelf over there. Beat 'em Up Volume 1 was a book that I had spent like the last 8 months working on, and it was the unofficial history of the Final Fight franchise. And I don't know how much I'm supposed to say about it or anything at all, but I did a Kickstarter for it. It was very successful. It had 2 days to go. I had then received communications from individuals involved that required me to pause that, and that book is not currently in production or available, nor do I have the idea that it will be available, just due to information received from parties about the project. And so it's the first time I've ever run into an obstacle like that, needing to potentially like understand like legal rights and ownership and what can and can't be used and everything. And it's not to say that I was just flying through and releasing these books, blind or anything. I mean, like a lot of my inspiration came from owning. I'm staring at a shelf again off camera. But I own a number of retro gaming books. You got like the huge heavy hitters from like Bitmap Books. They did like the Japanese role-playing game book by Kurt and a bunch of folks. They've done. I need to order that. Yeah, From Ants to Zombies was super rad. Go Straight by Dave Cook is a history of the beat 'em up genre. It essentially covers every game in the genre. I don't know that I've heard any like outlandish omissions or anything that were like forgotten from it, but so I think they did a really good job researching that. I've got books from like smaller publishers as well, Retro Game Books and Brian Rigsby. He does these NES, he does the video game maps. He's done an NES, and he's got a volume of the SNES maps and a second volume on the way. He's done one for the Genesis, but he's also done a history on Rygar and a pixel art Metroid book. Just trying to plug like all these amazing books. Again,
you're just making a lot. You're just making a lot of work for me for the show notes.
Oh, good. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's a good problem to have, honestly.
There's one more I do at least have to mention. But Limited Run, they have an imprint called Press Run. Jeremy Parrish, who's obviously like a fantastic writer and content creator and somebody in the games industry. Like you likely, if you like retro games, know or have discovered or read or been involved in something he's helped create and do. But yeah, like he's got his NES like printed books, NES Works books from Press Run, but he also has his amazing like YouTube channel and content he does with all that. But again, all those books exist. I own them, read them, look at them, curious to know like legally, like, oh, well, I guess, they're not using like on the cover, they're not using like the original art. They're not saying they're officially done. And sometimes they're even saying they're unofficially done. Mm-hmm. Inside like the legalese, like it talks about like fair use laws and how if it's transformative and done through like criticism and like the documentarian style like purposes, like, like that's how these can legally exist. And so all of this makes sense, so I'm like, okay, so I didn't go out and specifically talk to a lawyer, but like I saw the types and how and what they were producing and knew not to obviously cross any lines like that. But so the books I've done have not had any noise around them at all whatsoever until like this beat 'em up book did. And so that's like been one that kind of caused me to pause and actually have to pay a lawyer a retainer fee to like ask the questions and submit my information and get their legal opinion on it and everything. And the sad thing is that ultimately, even after doing all of that, that wouldn't, like, even if I followed all the letter of the law, fair use laws, all these things, didn't, use a reprint or infringe upon and try and like emulate and look like I was trying to be some type of official product that I'm not. If a corporation like any company wanted to still even challenge the legal rights of it all, like I wouldn't be able to afford a lawyer to like then go to bat for me to say, as a matter of fact, it is within legal grounds, and here's how we'll discourse this. So like even me following all like the rules and trying to be straight and narrow about it, like it really just takes like a random any random shot to happen to like potentially derail and pause everything. So I'm in a current holding pattern on a book that I spent 8 months doing and everything. And so I didn't necessarily think that volume 5 of 32-bit library would be something I'd be working on necessarily right now. I envisioned me doing that more in the fall, but losing 8 months of creativity and all that stuff was a significant like blow to like morale and like creative passions and everything as I paused. And that was right in the middle of like me just starting to roll out with this retro game zine thing. That was all designed to be like a project within the project. Like it really is, it's like 3 articles, they don't all have to be written by me either. Just some cool, like little visuals from like a fan base standpoint, all in like a little 28-page zine, like dedicated to game. Like I thought this was like a simple, it would be very quick to do, not a lot of like production, like energy needs to be exuded on it, just like some writing that I'm already comfortable doing, and kind of putting out these fun things. And so, after that blow happened with that book, essentially it was like, well, let's just make sure Retro Game Zine is chugging along here, and I'm forecasting out a lot of there, and then we'll move up like me working on volume 5. But again, I don't have any mandatory release dates for any of these things. It's just, I'd like to continue to have an output like happening, just to kind of continue to build off things and not just be pausing for any reason. I forecasted, I have given myself the strict monthly release schedule for Retro Game Zine. Like I'm calling it a zine, so in my mind I'm thinking magazine, and so I'm thinking it should be a monthly thing. So I'm going to do 12 issues, rain or shine, like with no delays in it, and be a monthly thing. I may then give myself the grace of like having off months, or like they'll be released as they're released type of thing, and like that'll be fine. But at least for this first year, I want to make sure that like everybody gets something new within 30 days from the last one, and has something kind of like fun to like dig in and read, that is helping me get back like my motivation and creativity of like, hey, build up like those big wins and all that stuff, build up those like that completion energy of being able to kind of see something through and having that project be completed and everything, after just having essentially a final ready to print file of like this cool thing, deep diving into one specific. It was my most involved like writing process, because it's all about just a handful of games instead of like 800 words on 40 different games. It was 20,000 words on 5 games, and I think even more than that actually. So just again, I'm getting bummed looking at this stupid printer's proof of it, like man, I'd love to have that out there and all that stuff, but like it is what it is. I'm figuring it out, and even the next couple of weeks maybe something changes that I'm able to kind of tweak it or modify it enough and to do something with it, or not, I don't know. But like glass half full, got a lot of fun creative things in front of me, and more down the pipeline, and then volume 5 just might come sooner because of all of it, and that's not a bad thing.
And you hit on a great thing, and I'll take this as kind of the lead out as we're getting to our last couple questions. Like you said, even with all of the work, even with, transformative laws and fair use and all of this, the sort of like very precarious state that a lot of projects based around retro gaming exist in for a lot of reasons. It's weird to be a fan of retro games because of that. And, especially, fans of the podcast will know, and if you follow me on Blue Sky, I have a lot of opinions, and I'm very I'm very loud and I'm very specific about them. And one of the things that I'm very loud and opinionated about is games preservation and the retro game scene and sort of games, like the longevity of video games. And so these sorts of projects are great because it exists kind of outside of that, and I love seeing you talk about like limited run books. Lost in Cult has like a big book coming out about Rez. That and they've done a bunch. Rez is just the one that speaks to me because I love Rez. And they have one with like Grasshopper Manufacturer, and like it's great. And I love that all of these projects exist, right? And I love all the creative efforts, but it's not the same thing in a way that's so annoying when you compare it to other media. You know what I mean? And it's the thing that I try to convey to people all the time about it, where it's just like, well, whatever, it's the same as movies. It's the same as TV shows, whatever. And it's like, it's not, because a movie is a movie is a movie. If I have a movie on a DVD, I can play that DVD on any number of things. If I have a movie as a digital file, I can play that movie on any number of things. If I have a PlayStation disc, like in my hand, there's only so many things that I can do with that. There's only so many places I can put that it will be the game. And it's like, I'm very outspoken, and Darren, feel free to comment or not comment as you feel comfortable doing, because I certainly don't want you to feel like you have to, you put yourself in a weird position. I don't mind being loud about it. I'm very much a proponent of emulation. I'm very much a proponent of, my going statement is always, if they won't let you give them money for the game, don't give them money for the game. And it's why it's exciting to see things like the Suikoden HD remaster that we were talking about at the top, and things like the Baten Kaitos remaster for Switch, the Etrian Odyssey remaster collection that came out. And even still, as exciting as those releases are, it makes certain other things sting all the harder. Why are some games not getting re-released? Why are some games only existing as remasters? Why do some games only exist as like weird HD, like like Capcom's Resident Evil like 2 and 3? Like those are, or I mean, the one that I was the loudest about, the Silent Hill 2 remake. A lot of people were, I don't like Bloober Team personally. And a lot of people were like, well, this is great because this makes Silent Hill 2 more accessible. And I'm like, it doesn't. It makes the Silent Hill 2 remake more accessible. It makes this version of this art more accessible. Don't tell me, a Star Wars fan, that this remake is what I should be happy to have. And so like it's weird, right? Like it's just this weird combination of like frustration and excitement. And this is coming from me who didn't grow up with it in that same way. Like I grew up playing video games, but I didn't have the same attachment, like I said, until really, really recently, when I started to dig into the history. I started to read more reviews. I started to get more into criticism and critiques. But like I said, don't say anything that you feel like you don't want to say. Don't take this as me trying to goad you into anything. But
no, I mean, I'm not worried about crossing the line. I mean, I think ultimately I have that exact same stance as you. Is like people should be able to play and experience these games from history. And if you are not going to make a way that I can pay you to do that thing that I want to do, like I also don't think there's any wrongdoing in finding a means to play that, game, whatever it means, like any way that you can. Like I would love for Sony to have some digital library where I'm able to just like pay a monthly cost and I can access every PlayStation game and just play it and, and go from there. That doesn't exist. It seems like it would be so easy to just do something like that. So I just don't understand why that doesn't exist. And I love remakes. I love remasters. I love the ground up complete overhauls like that Silent Hill 2 one. I mean, I haven't played it. I'm kind of scared by horror games as an adult. I don't know why. Yeah, it does not replace the original. Like, we should be able to have both those things. Like, I love to have like remakes of a movie, or like new ideas or new takes on similar concepts and designs, and those should exist. But I also want to be able to go back and experience that original, or look at the thing that influenced or caused that to even happen to begin with. Like, we should be able to play all those types of things. So it's crazy that we're at where we're at. And then on top of that, love Capcom games. My first 32-bit library book that I don't want to draw any extra attention to right now because it's about Capcom and blah 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 blah. And really, it's not just them. You can look at Namco, you can look at a lot of old companies, but like from the 70s, 80s into the early 90s, finish a game, roll credits, and tell me who those developers are. Tell me who those designers and programmers and artists were. They're often like pseudonyms, completely omitted. They had to use like fake names, or like their like fun shorthand name, because they were not the people involved with that. It was the company who owned it, and it was their artwork. They just helped make that thing, but it wasn't about them. So like, it's weird that like we are now facing like, people can't even do like, like video game, like fan made, like ROM hack, like remakes or reimaginings of things that aren't even existing, because the company wants to control that ownership and property right, or IP rights and all stuff over it, which is totally their legal right to do. But they themselves don't even want to give credit to the people who made it. They themselves aren't trying to give it its flowers and its due, make it accessible and available for people to buy. So it is so weird why video games have like, from both sides of it, like, we don't want to honor and credit and give that information available to people who were involved in it, and the joy and the knowledge of like who did this and why they did it and why they were important to it. And then on top of that, they just don't even want you to play it anymore, but they just want to make sure they own it as an IP and as a property, and they don't want anybody to infringe on it. And it's a weird, backwards, like an upside down and all around confusing like part of the industry for sure. On top of like, and that's not even the only problem the game industry has, like, and you have modern games that like now are being treated in a AAA space of like if your game cannot compete and make this X, Y, or Z sales, like your entire team is being shuttered. We don't care that you all are used to working together. We don't care that you'd be able to make another game much quicker than a whole brand new team would, because you're so used to working with each other and each other's skill set, how to like turn in and shorthand and form, and what each other's creative limits are and things like that. Instead, you're just churning and burning, shutting down all these like studios, but still expecting to have these AAA games happen while you like independently like freelance or put together a team, only to like reduce them down to a skeleton crew, if that, after the fact, and still like want to have all these things happen. So it's just a weird time to be in. And I me as a fan, like the games that like influenced and inspired me creatively, opened up my mind to different stories, to like entertain me and like just fill me in my afternoons with like joy and engagement and everything. Like, I just want to be able to play those things, talk about those things, like share them with people, like write a book that just shares who I was and when I was and why this thing was rad and why I think you should enjoy it too. I'm literally advertising for all of these things. And if these were existed to be a chance to be purchased and bought, like, it would only be benefiting these companies to do these things, to have them available and all that stuff. But instead, I'm worried about that next potential email from some legal department that's saying to not do what I'm doing, when it's like, sorry for loving your products and sorry for loving your history enough to like freely advertise it for you. If you want to take over and do exactly what I'm doing here, I will give you money to do that. I am only doing that because this doesn't exist. So why am I the crazy one? I don't know. It is, I'm with you there though. Like, it doesn't, we should be able to have our cake and eat it too, because like, I'm not asking to steal or prevent somebody from financially gaining from any of this. Like, let me give you my money. Like, I've got the money right here and I want this thing to exist. So like, if you're not going to do that, then like, at least let me nostalgically look back and write about it and like share with others, like my love for this thing that is clearly being forgotten and harder to be able to be accessible to play and accessed by people who may not have any means whatsoever to access it at this point.
Yeah. And it's so weird the state that it does exist in, which is mainly due to I don't even want to say willful ignorance. I get the feeling that a lot of companies know about it and they say, well, for any number of reasons, we couldn't do a re-release. Like I had a wild thing where I shared a story about the game director from Koudelka being surprised that people were so excited about Koudelka now in 2025. And so I shared that story on my Blue Sky. And I was like, this is why preservation is so important. Like, I loved Koudelka. I came to it super late. I only played it the last couple of years, but I love this game. This game is an absolute gem. No one talks about it. No one's heard of it. And like, this should be available. This would be so amazing if this was available. Someone replied to that post that I made and was like, I'm talking to SNK in 2 weeks. Let me see what we can do. Let's see where the rights are. Let's see where that is. And I'm like,
how is not been a conversation already? How
is this not a conversation? Because like I can appreciate to a certain extent that like during the original Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, like up until the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation, right? Digital distribution like that, preservation like that wasn't really a concept. I doubt anybody was thinking about it. There was probably somebody that had that thought just statistically, but I get the idea. You know, there's any number of interviews with people from back in the day where they were like, yeah, they'd make a game, they'd ship the game, they'd wipe the workstation, they'd start on the next one. And it's like, hey, there's only so much you can do, right? But if it were me, right? If I worked for maybe, I don't think Nintendo would do this. I don't think any of the bigger companies would do this, right? But like if I was somebody who's working for Sega, working for Atlas, like Atlas is always my go-to for this because I think Atlas is a great example for it. If I worked for Atlas, what I would do is I would buy physical copies of every game that Atlas released that I could find. I would make ROMs, right? And ISOs and whatever. And I would sell those. And I would be like, here's ROMs and ISOs. You buy it on the digital storefront. Here you go. You figure it out. But here's this Game Boy Color game that we're going to release. We're going to translate. We're going to release. Here you go.
Yeah, all you Demi Kids fiends out there.
Yeah, could you imagine if tomorrow Atlas was like, yeah, we're putting Demi Kids out, and you know, there's an argument to be made of like, oh, they should make a Switch collection, blah 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 blah. Sure. Guess what? The Switch collection isn't going to last much longer than your GameCube cartridges for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I would love it if these companies would just, because the excuse I hear a lot, or the justification. Excuse feels like I'm discrediting it. The justification that I hear a lot is like who owns the rights, right? Who owns the rights? Who can distribute this? Who can whatever? And I'm like, I don't know, dog. Call your legal department, right? that's much like we talked about. That sounds like your responsibility. Like,
yeah, as the corporation involved who made the game, like you should probably know who owns that or not. You know, like it's the thing you made. Like, so yeah, like I don't like. It's like, you know, me, I've done a number of these books. If I show up to a convention and I'm trying to sell a book and I only have my newest one, and people are like, oh, this is inspired by your others, the fifth in the series. Cool, I'd love to read 1 through 4. Like, oh yeah, I don't have those. Like, oh, where can you get them? Oh, I don't have them for sale. Like, no, I made them. They exist. Oh, people like them? Well, that's news to me. I had no idea. I should have continued to have these available to people to buy, or have continued to publish this, and republish this. I'm worried about this one new game right now in front of me, or this one new book in front of me right now. It's too hard. That's not for me to deal with right now. Like having somebody, there are some weird pockets of glimmers of hope on some of the preservation side of things that have come up. Sega, like last year, they had that job posting for like an archivist, somebody who would like essentially run like the Sonic the Hedgehog history and like go through like all of their internal documents and archives, and just ensure that like it just sounds like just preserving the whole like development and history and legacy of like that franchise and everything internally at Sega, and whether that like, you know, that work could then be turned into very easily like books and books projects, internal like things they use for information for making new games, for reference points. I mean, like, you could do so much if that information is readily available to them. But I think that's where a lot of these companies are at. They don't have, like, to your point, they may not have the original like DAT files and things like that for these games, but like get them. Like, go buy those things now before they're gone. And like, you can solve that problem there. And then, yeah, like at the bare minimum, yeah, you just sold like ROMs and ISOs on a website. Like, you're the company. You're the person who could then be making money off that. Like, is your whole purpose not to make money? Like,
right.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. Even my most cynical idea, even the most cynical bent I could take at it is, you're a company, you want to make money. This would be a very small investment, and have, you know, they love returns, they love long tails. Hey, guess what? If you could buy a copy of like Persona 2 just on a website, like, hey, guess what? That you could sell that ISO forever. That just has to exist one place.
You know how it's not going to sell? By not having it available and not having it like
right now. Do you see how you're not making money on it? That's where we live right now, where you're not making money.
If you think it might not be worth the investment, not be worth much and all that stuff. Like, it is such a low barrier to do like a release situation like that. Like, low cost of entry, just do that. And even if you're like, oh man, we only made $25,000, you know, off this game this year, you know, or you know, this batch of games this year, or whatever. That's $25,000 you didn't have before, and that might be peanuts to you and all that stuff. But hey, maybe that's one more like intern you can hire, you know, to like help make this next project better. Or like suddenly it's more like, oh wow, we could now hire or retain a lawyer to look into the ownership rights of these things. So then maybe make a re-release or something like that. You know, but to not do anything, it's on you as the company, not on me, the fan, trying to be enthused and excited about what it is that you're doing there and everything. So yeah.
And so you always see such a big spike on interest when they announce a new thing. They announce, we keep coming back to Capcom. They announced the new Monster Hunter Wilds game however long ago. After they announced that, they sold 2 million copies of Monster Hunter World. And that was not even that was to their credit. They very specifically were also very aggressive with marketing and discounts and like getting units sold and getting new players and stuff like that. You know, imagine what happens when you announce like, oh, there's a new Sonic game. Oh man, what if you could go buy all these old Sonic games? What if you could buy what if you could buy some of these things? Wouldn't that be cool? Crazy.
Who needs money? Who needs money when you're a corporation for money?
Who needs money when you're a corporation that exists only for money? Wait.
Darn it. It's on us again.
Damn. We got
Don't worry. Our new AI algorithm where we're going to replace all these things. We're going to announce this to the public and everyone will love this. Are we doing this wrong? Hold on, Steve. Are we doing this wrong? I think we're doing this wrong.
Wait, was that wrong? Should I not have said that? Is that not what that does? Oh my goodness, Darren, this was great. Before the last question, I was make a point. Thank you for spending time. Thank you for sitting down. It's always one. You were worried about filling time. We filled all the time.
Oh man, I know. I can't believe it. I was like, oh shoot, it has been. Maybe I could fill 20 minutes. How are we going to do 2 hours?
But yeah, thank you so much for sitting down and spending time with me. I always appreciate the hell out of it. Everything for Darren, all of Darren's links and websites and projects and stuff will be linked in the show notes. So you know, go check out all his websites. Go buy his books. Go buy all his books. Find where all his books are. Buy them. If you think you've bought all the books, you probably missed one. Check again, because there's a lot of them. But here at the end, so this is the final question. This is how I always end the show. This is the 3 question. The first episode, I asked my guest a top 3 whatever question, and we had a good time with it. So I've just done it at the end of every episode. And I come up with it during the episode because it's not a thing that I want to write down. It's a thing I want to happen organically. So we talked enough about it. It's got to be this. There's only one answer. There's only one question. There's only one thing it could be. Darren, what are your 3 favorite Anaheim Angel Stadium renderings?
Oh my gosh. It's that Supercross game.
That's a good one.
Because it had a dirt track with all like the ramps and stuff. It wasn't the baseball field, so it was unique and special because of that. Then yeah, I think it's I got the book right here. I want to say when they finally started rendering outside of the stadium. Yeah, here we go. So is Randy Johnson from the Diamondbacks. Oh, it's blurred out again.
That's gonna be so
almost
hard.
like it's censored. But
it's like it knows.
Amazing,
it's like no copyright. No.
Yeah. It's got some amazing palm trees outside the stadium that don't exist in real life.
Love that.
MLB 2000 there. Let's see if there's a later release of that. A Supercross circuit. Oh, did I give Jeremy McGrath credit? I didn't mean to give Jeremy McGrath credit. Jeremy McGrath, you get no credit here. This game was just called Supercross Circuit. You are not the sponsored athlete.
That's fair, though. That was a very, very common thing during that era, especially for extreme sports games.
Jeremy McGrath, you can go somewhere else. Get your paycheck somewhere else. You don't need our money. He's
listening to this on the phone with his lawyer. Like, wait a minute, did I get credit? I don't think we got the right royalty payments.
You suck, Jeremy McGrath. Yeah, so it looks like they must have it must have peaked out around 2000. Looking at this next one, it's the same render, the same rocks, and the same like fake palm trees that don't actually exist there in real life behind it. I swear there was one. Yeah, obviously that's the point of the question. It's kind of like that gotcha. But I swear there was one that like showed some buildings, even though it wasn't actually like the pond of Anaheim or the Honda Center now across the street or anything at all. But I swear you could see some buildings at one point from there. So yeah, I mean, we're going to have to throw the two most recent MLB games, we'll say the last two releases, and that Supercross circuit game for its uniqueness. But those are the top three in-game Anaheim Angels Stadium renders of all time.
I love it. It's so it being in the motocross game is so funny to me. That's so funny because normally they're so generic. They're just like desert or jungle or whatever, and it's like no, this is the stadium. We put it in the stadium. Yeah,
there's a Konami baseball game that I didn't realize it, but I mean this happened from time to time. But they had the MLB Players Association license, so full rights to use all the players, everybody in the league. You're in the game. We got you. Shoot, we didn't get the license to the actual MLB. So no teams, no uniforms, no logos, no nothing. Like we don't got it. So the stadiums there were like Seafront Village and like Metropolitan Paradise, and like it was like these generic places and stuff.
That's so funny. That feels like their lawyer didn't read the contract and they're like, yeah, we got it. We got we're good. We got it.
We got it. We got the MLBPA. We're gonna have all Frank Thomas is in the game, and Big Hurt's gonna just nail these homers. Oh, but he's not going to do it as a member of the Chicago White Sox.
I just imagine someone on the phone like, that's a separate thing. So we got all right. Well.
Yeah, whoops. That happened with Madden 64 also had it. I think NFL Quarterback Club, Acclaim, had the exclusive rights to the NFL license. So the first Madden on the Nintendo 64 had all the players, but none of the teams as well. Similar situation there.
So funny.
So they had Green Bay versus Los Angeles, but no Packers and no Rams and nothing like that was happening inside that game.
That's amazing. Video games sometimes.
Yeah, all the times.
Sometimes that's true. With video games, all the time.
All the times. But gosh. No, again, Darren, thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight. It's been a treat. I'm glad to finally have you on. And this was amazing. Let's do a little outro again, just for the sake of it. Where people can find you, where people can find your stuff, where you want to point them to, please. Yes, I blew up all of my social medias. I do not support or endorse any of those jerks. So no Facebook, no Twitter, or all that new stuff. You can only find me and exclusively find me with my exclusive deal with Blue Sky. So at Darren Hupke, at my name, just at darrenhupke.bsky.social. That's my personal account. And then I have an at pixelsandpolygons.net. That is my publishing and projects account. Pixelsandpolygons.net is also the website where you can physically buy my books. Those are buying them directly from me. I'll ship them to you, and all my stuff's on there. The Retro Game Zine, the first 2 issues. The 3rd issue will be in the next week or 2 available. And then my patreon.com/Darren Hupke. I do some writing. It's inconsistent there, and that's okay. But I mean, I do post like when there's an update on a project that I'm working on. It's all available there. The funding that I get from like the one paid tier I have just kind of helps me with like web hosting costs for like my podcast and for like that pixelandpolygons.net. So that does help me. And the rewards you get from that is this like postcard of the month thing that I do. It's literally a single. I have one. Maybe, okay. Here's an upcoming one. It's going to be Jammer Lammy, again, censored because we don't want you to see it. But it's a postcard with just a single screenshot on it, and on the back of it will be a review for the game, and it's essentially the world's smallest periodical. So it's the shortest magazine you could possibly get because it's a single screenshot and a review all in the postcard that you get mailed to you. And it's like $5 a month to get that postcard plus the original writing. You get the digital copies of Retro Game Zine for free with that as well. So I think there's a pretty good value of like a lot of my stuff's all available on there. And then because it allows me to have digital files listed, Patreon is also where you can buy the digital copies of 32-Bit Library and Retro Game Scene. They don't have like any hosting fees or anything weird like that. They just take a little percentage of the sales. So physically buy the books, pixelsandpolygons.net. Digitally buy the books, patreon.com/Darren Hupke, and potentially support me in there as well. And then I have my own podcast called Pixels and Polygons, which is a short podcast where I'm not nervous to fill 20 minutes because I can do 20 minutes. Like, no problem. I do it every Friday. And so that's pretty much everything I've got going on right now. Always cool ideas cooking in the background and everything. But yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm really looking forward to Atlas opening their Patreon page so that I can go buy a copy of I mean, we already talked about Demi-Kids. I wanted to pull a really silly old Atlas game, but I mean, you did it with Demi-Kids. That's and that's the one I would buy. If they were like, we've released Demi-Kids, I'd be like, sign me up. There it is.
Yeah.
I'd be there day one.
Yeah, if you're if just a little shout out, a real quick section, I'm wearing my Flashback 64 shirt. They do a chronological Nintendo 64 podcast, Gooey and McKenna, part of the Illuminati crew is what we've jokingly called ourselves. But we just constantly are like circling around each other's guests and folks and friends. And so like Nick Dre from Fine Time, Idolism J, Andrew Elmore, like
Andrew's
all of
great.
us have a good time just kind of meeting. It's really been Blue Sky, like honestly, like coming to Blue Sky and being able to kind of like get in early where like a lot of us retro gaming hungry folks were all ensuring that we were, you know, in each other's orbit and everything. It was just so curious to meet a bunch of like cool people, and like my feed is just filled with actual stuff I want to read and engage with and actually follow, and it's just allowed me to meet like a lot of cool folks and everything. So yeah, I mean, like, find me on Blue Sky. Like, I definitely want to engage and be a part of the conversation, all that stuff. And just love the fact that I've been able to meet so many cool people in this entire process. So, yeah, that's all I got.
I love Blue Sky. All the cool. I think you have Aiden Mower on Retro Zine 3 talking about Final Fantasy 11. I remember correctly, that's what it is.
Aiden's going to be in the Breath of Fire 4 issue.
That's what I was thinking. No, that's it.
My May one. Yeah. James Milkey, the milkman from the old EGM days and OneUp.com and all the Ziff Davis stuff. He is in the Final Fantasy 11 issue 3.
That's what I'm thinking.
That was the super grail because he did this column in GMR magazine called My Life in Vanity L, and he talked about just his monthly progress of playing the game and leveling up and going through that game, so that the few months of me waiting to get my own copy of that, like I was like living through him, and you know, just him and the EGM crew, like was always such like I would read them monthly. Like those people like was that first parasocial relationship where it's like knowing all the stuff they liked and loved, and like I loved these people growing up as a kid reading their magazines. And so now as an adult and doing this, like I had to shoot my shot. And again, that no shame filter, I'm like, hey, look, man, I love Final Fantasy 11, and I know you do too. Would you want to write an article for this stupid little thing that I'm doing? And yeah, we came up with an arrangement, and he's on board. And yeah, Aiden will be the other contributor. I mean, I've had Another person from Blue Sky, Sasha Retro Bytes. Like if you see her stuff
Sasha's
on
great.
Blue Sky, all the scanline photos, like all the cool like deep dives. I was like I want to have some contributors, and I'd love to have some other like thoughts and people. We got in a conversation, and we did this obscure Commodore 64 game called Project Firestart. That's going to be issue 4. But they're in that issue, and so like all my future issues, I'm trying to like bring in 1 or 2 folks that are new to me, or just kind of like special to like the game, just like I have a special feeling for these games, and just to kind of make sure it's a fun read. It's not going to be just a clean like history retelling, like anecdotal, like data dive. It's like, hey, like why did I love this game? Why was I the weirdo who like obsessed over this, and what made this special? Like, let's make sure we got a couple of voices in here talking about what made this like weird thing weirder. And that's the point of the retro game zine side of things.
Yeah, I love it, and it's Blue Sky's been such a joy, because I really locked in. Not that long ago, it's all of the people I refer to affectionately to like my partner, my friends, as the game sickos that I follow. It'll just be like, oh yeah, everybody, all of the game sickos got real excited for the 30th of Chrono Trigger, or everybody was talking about like the Dreamcast over the weekend, and it's so fun to watch just everybody get excited about a thing. And then for the next 2 days, it's just everybody talking about that thing because of how excited they are, and they're just like, oh, I didn't realize we could talk about, and it's such a joy to see and to be able to engage with, and like I said, as a person who, I didn't play a lot of these games, didn't have a lot of these systems to watch people talk about, like, oh yeah, it's cool, this game, and I was like, I've never heard of this game. What is this? So yeah, Blue Sky's great. Again, just adding like 5 or 6 more links I got to put on the show notes. just links to more people, more things.
Hopefully I can have the record. Because Boss Fight Books, if you haven't been reading Boss Fight books, they recently re-released the Chrono Trigger book with their new like branding, I guess, their visual, their design, for their cover design and style. It's got a cleaner look, so they re-released the Chrono Trigger book, and so that's what I've been reading. Again, blurred out for legal reasons. The last plug in there that you're gonna have to put for the show notes is all of Boss Fight Books' original writings, and the stable of authors they've worked with tell really great histories of video games, but with so much like personal like depth and charm and attachment to like these games. Like, it's that type of writing that like inspires me to realize that like I can share more about who I am and what I'm doing, and it doesn't have to be so like sanitized and everything. And it's just it's great to have that type of writing out there, and to know that they've been doing it now for 40-something books. Read their books; they definitely have at least a couple you'll probably love. I've even read books that I've never even played the games of, and it's just an engaging read with the folks that they've partnered up with in their stuff. So, last plug. Maybe Boss Fight Books.
We have to end the podcast so that we stop the plugs. They announced Aiden Mower's doing one for Suikoden. Okay, that's the last plug. Ones,
yeah.
That's the last plug.
Man, I'm so happy for him on that. That's so rad. Like, I don't need to keep talking.
Oh goodness, Darren, thank you so much. Again, these are always such a treat. I have such a good time. Like you said, like we said at the top, like make something for you, and other people will likely enjoy it. And if nothing else, this podcast is I get to have a good time. And then, hey, do you listen to it and have a good time? Great. That makes me even happier. So thank you for spending time.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Let me tell you, I've been trying to think of a way to do like shorter episodes for when people come back when they have a new thing. And I don't know, when you have volume 5 on Kickstarter or something, hit me up. We'll figure something out. We'll have like a
right on. Yeah.
a bonus quick hit or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll let you go. We have to stop at a certain point. We have to stop talking. But Darren, thank you so much. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
And that's it. That's the interview with Darren for this episode. I want to thank Darren again so much for coming on. It was fantastic to chat. We had such a good time. And I'm actually getting ready right now to be on Darren's podcast, which by the time you're hearing this, you might be able to go listen to. You can find all the links to Darren's stuff in the show notes. You can find his website. You can find the Pixels and Polygons website. You can find the Patreon, where you can go buy digital copies of 32-Bit Library and support him on Patreon to help pay for hosting and fees and all kinds of stuff. While you're there, you can check out the What You Doing Patreon to help me pay for hosting and fees and stuff. As always, thank you all for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. If you want to support the show in a cool, free way, if you could rate the show on whatever platform you're using, if that supports ratings, that would be great. I would really appreciate that. And just tell your friends if they're interested in listening to this weird eclectic show. Like I said, I'm going to be on Darren's podcast very, very soon. We're recording it today. Hopefully by the time you're listening to this, it will be available. I will make sure to add it in the show notes. So if you're listening to this in the future, the link to that podcast is probably in the show notes. So you can go check that out. You can hear me talk to Darren some more, in case you didn't get enough. But again, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.